technology. And today I'd like to talk about DNA storage, since there's been some significant advances in using DNA as a storage medium. It's not quite ready yet, but companies like Microsoft are saying that within 3 years they want to use this as a storage medium for themselves. So the assumption is that they believe they can make it commercially viable by then. Now I have to explain it a little bit. Like DNA is essentially it's inside our cells. That's how our information and about who we are and how we're built essentially is stored inside our cells. But as far as for data information storage, what we use it to store ones and zeros, similar to conventional data. It's all ones and zeros, and DNA is set in a format where it's ones and zeros. You have adenine and thymine, AT, and CG, which is cytosine, and guanine. These are molecules that are part of the DNA. These are the four main molecules that make up DNA. The double helix you've seen many times, and A and T, adenine and thymine, always go together. So that's like a 1, for example. And cytosine and guanine always go together, and that's your 0. And then you have a sequence of AT and CGs and whatnot that are kind of stacked in the double helix. So you have 1, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, whatever, right? Now, inside a single molecule, which is fairly small, all in a long string. And that's how you store traditional data, like ones and zeros, inside an organic molecule like DNA. Now, the advantage of DNA as a storage medium is that it is incredibly dense. The molecules can be stacked together really, really tightly, and they last forever. You can have DNA stored in your garage for a few 100,000 years, and it'll still be intact. Your information's still going to be there unless there's a fire or something unusual happening. It's impervious to things like electromagnetic pulse, which are current computers and storage medium that are electricity based. It wouldn't be covered, or at least it wouldn't be protected against that. And also, magnets are bad for our hard drives and things like that. Well, DNA doesn't matter. You can put your magnets all you want close to it. It won't affect anything. So it's very, very stable. It can last long amounts of times and room temperature. No need to pay attention to it. Just put it in a jar in a box, and you're good to go. So really, really great. Also, it's the compactness of it is amazing. We can put all the data accumulated so far in humanity, and you can currently store it in your garage. Essentially, you're looking at 1 gram of DNA. So that's 1,000th of a kilo, right? Because it's kilograms. You can store 215,000 terabytes of data. You can put it in perspective. That's about 100,000 2-terabyte hard drives. 100,000 2-terabyte hard drives. And that's in 1 gram of DNA. Same amount of information, same amount of ones and zeros. You get me? That is compact and stable. The problem with it is that it's fairly young, it's experimental as a storage device, so it costs about, for 200 megabytes of information, at last metric, at least in 2017, that 200 megabytes of information was stored, but it cost $800,000 to do that. That's because it's experimental, it's not very refined, not very efficient processes, and it's really, really slow. It's about 400 bytes a second as a speed compared to our 150 odd megabytes a second that we have currently. So that's, that's over 10 million times. Oh wait, no, 250 times. 250,000 times slower than our conventional hard drives. 250,000, that's right. All right. So we need to speed it up, and we need to make it cost efficient. Once it is, it's really great because these are organic molecules. Essentially, uh, instead of using magnetic pulses, for example, to create ones and zeros on a hard drive, or using lasers to encode things on Blu-ray disc or CD or CDs and things like that, what you're doing, you're actually making DNA. So you're putting AT and CGs together, and you're making DNA. So you need actual physical organic molecules to make it work. So it needs sustenance in a way to create more DNA to create. So you're starting with a container that is empty, and or has liquid in it, like water, for example, or saline, and you're taking these molecules ATCG and you're putting them together to create DNA, and that's how you're making your solution. Then, when you want to decode it and you want to read it, then you use the DNA, and then you can essentially have a reader that some labs have a device where you read the ones and zeros and it interpreted. So the reading of it can be faster and doesn't require any materials per se, not a whole lot, or barely enough. But making the storage, you're making DNA. You're actually producing it. So for now, it's more viewed as something of a permanent archiving storage medium, so that it's a little bit faster, it's more expensive, but it lasts forever, and you make it once and it's good to go. You're not constantly rewriting and changing things. You're basically just archiving things. Now, because we have techniques like gene editing, and we have we're going to get faster, and we're going to be able to manipulate things at a molecular level much faster in the next few years. It's feasible to assume that down the line we'll figure out a way where we're using our house waste, for example, which includes organic matter, right? It includes DNA, RNA, it includes cells, it includes organic matter. So you can reutilize ATCG that's inside our waste material, or make our own ATCG from the waste material and convert that into storage or some other items. So this is down the line. I mean, I'm kind of thinking ahead. This is all possible because the atoms are there, and we can think of ways to manipulate it. So we can, from our home, without buying the organic material to make the DNA storage, we could probably reutilize or repurpose our waste to make it work, which is really interesting. And we can probably figure out a way to molecularly or organically modify the DNA that's currently already stored to change the data. Just like hard disks do it to modify data, you can probably do it using organic enzymes and like CRISPR-Cas9, which is a gene editing complex we could use to modify the DNA, the information inside there selectively. This is way down the line, by the way, like in a number of years. But for now, it's really interesting to look at DNA as an archiving tool, which in the next few years, if Microsoft's involved in others, will probably get very cheap and much faster. And this leads to other things. But as a massive storage device, like you want to store all your movies, for example, like and pictures, and keep them forever, for example. Well, if DNA is cheap and fast, you can encode it in DNA, and then all you have to do is read. You don't need to do anything special. And we know how to read DNA. There are techniques to do that. So you can, as long as the bit rate is fast enough, which is something that we of a challenge for the next few years, you can just you can keep your movies forever inside little bottles of DNA, essentially. So that would be pretty interesting. And that's going to be it for today, but I don't want to go deeper. But interesting concepts to think about for you guys that are opportunists and entrepreneurs. There's a lot of opportunity in organic computing like this. Everything needs to be built, everything needs to be set up, and there's a lot of potential for very stable, fast, small devices that are very environmentally safe to produce, because we can repurpose waste, organic waste, into making these devices. And no need for metals, or no need for heavy mining, no need for to strip any of the environment. We already have plenty of organic materials at those quantities. around the house that we don't need, that we actually need to throw away, which is an environmental problem in and of itself. So I'm going to leave it to you guys to figure the details and make us something really interesting with all this, and move us forward. I don't know what this is going to look like in like 10 years from now, but I'm sure it's going to be fascinating. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you can comment and send me some more links and ideas if you'd like. But that's going to be it for this week, and next week I'm going to talk about something else. All right, ciao for now.